1922, the murder of one of Hollywood's most popular directors was the talk of the town, and Hollywood's first whodunit. The victim, 49-year-old William Desmond Taylor. In a town with a rich history of scandal and tragedy, the William Desmond Taylor murder may just be the granddaddy of them all. The investigation was fraught with cover-ups, police corruption, evidence tampering, outrageous rumors, innuendo, and lies. Well, some things never change. The Hollywood rumor mill was in overdrive on this one. Suspects ranged from one of the most popular screen actresses of the era to a rising young starlet to an enraged stage mother. Or was the killer someone from Taylor's mysterious past? I mean, this guy had a whole closet full of skeletons, not to mention an impressive collection of ladies' lingerie.
They found a cache of pornographic photographs. They found Mary Miles Minter's underwear.
On this episode of Mysteries and Scandals, we'll revisit the murder of William Desmond Taylor and piece together the puzzle that continues to baffle Hollywood.
It was to everybody's advantage to keep it a mystery. There were so many people who had things to hide.
And we'll examine the fallout from this sensational crime. I'm A.J. Benza. Join me as we attempt to unravel one of Hollywood's most notorious unsolved murders, the cold-blooded killing of William Desmond Taylor. On the morning of February 2nd, 1922, actor-turned-silent film director William Desmond Taylor was found on the floor of his bungalow with a bullet hole in his back, murdered by an unknown assailant. The 49-year-old Taylor was the pride and joy of Paramount Studios. Every actor in town wanted to work with him. Taylor biographer Sidney Kirkpatrick is the author of A Cast of Killers.
You have a place where a young actor, William Desmond Taylor, can literally arrive unannounced, without a resume, you know, and within a few years become president of the Directors Association, who can become the Steven Spielberg of his generation.
But Taylor's journey to Hollywood was filled with twists and turns. He was born William Dean Tanner in Ireland on April 26, 1872. At 18, he headed to America, spent years knocking around the States, sowing his oats in the heartland. But finally, Taylor settled in New York City to assume a career as an actor.
It's as an actor that I think he first got his footing, that he first started finding himself.
After a few years of marginal success as an actor, William, now 33, married and had a daughter. Then at age 36, William grew tired of his mundane existence and decided it was time for a change. Veteran Paramount producer A.C. Lyles.
One day he had lunch and just disappeared. I heard stories that he became searching for gold up in the Klondike someplace, worked in an oil field and everything else, and wound up in Hollywood as an actor.
It was 1912. During his adventures before hitting Hollywood, William Dean Tanner reinvented himself and became William Desmond Taylor. Under his new name, he starred in the 1913 film The Quakeress. Not long afterwards, Taylor decided he was better off behind the camera. Probably a good idea. Author Bruce Long.
Within 2 years, he got his first chance to direct, and from then on, he was a director. Finally, he worked for the company which became Paramount.
Author Betty Fussell.
He was Hollywood's gent. He was the guy who had class because he was Anglo-Irish. He had, you know, a classy English accent. So he was the guy that they would trot out in Pasadena at fancy society parties. He was the only one who was respectable.
Well, looks can be deceiving, but we'll get into that later. By the time William Desmond Taylor turned 40, he was Hollywood's new aristocrat. He was handsome, elegant, and wildly successful. Not surprising that Taylor found himself surrounded by many female admirers. One of the women taken with Taylor's charms was comedy actress Mabel Normand.
Everybody knew Mabel Normand. She was a big, big star. She was like Joan Crawford of her day.
But even in the 1920s, movie stars had their problems, and Mabel Normand was no exception.
Mabel was on drugs. Drugs were really available every place. That means coke. They call it snow. They were snowbirds.
Tom McDonald works for the L.A. District Attorney's Office.
Cocaine was very prevalent. You could go into a bar in the 20s, and they had cocaine on the bar. It was like an hors d'oeuvre.
And anybody who wanted it could have it. Girls who were unrestrained, like Mabel, good time girls. William Desmond Taylor saved her from the drug world.
Mabel Normand stated that he was helping her with her French lessons, that often he would lend her books to read.
Hollywood historian Laurie Jacobson continues.
One theory was that Taylor, who loved Mabel Normand, had fought with a drug dealer, actually pushing him into the street and physically fighting with him.
But Mabel Normand wasn't the only Hollywood personality involved with Taylor. 17-year-old Mary Miles Minter, Paramount's version of Mary Pickford, was developing a schoolgirl crush on her dashing 49-year-old director.
Mary Miles Minter had been a stage actress very young when she was 13 years old, 14 years old, went into the films. Her mother managed her career.
Mary Miles Minter was desperately in love with Taylor. She had a witch of a mother, a domineering, manipulative, greedy, horrible woman who cared for Mary only because Mary made a lot of money.
Literally, Charlotte Shelby dominated her daughter.
If Mary were to marry William Desmond Taylor, or if the public were to find out that Mary was in love with a man twice her age, it would ruin her career and kill Charlotte's golden goose. And she could not allow that to happen.
Well, something happened, because on the night of February 2nd, 1922, William Desmond Taylor ended up dead, shot once in the back. Hollywood was stumped. Who did it? Was Taylor's murder somehow connected to Mabel Normand and drugs? Did Mary Miles Minter's conniving mom decide to eliminate the man who threatened to steal her golden goose? Or did William Desmond Taylor's sordid and salacious secrets contribute to his death? Straight ahead, we'll look at some clues that may help us solve Hollywood's first real-life murder mystery. In 1922, Paramount Studios' most popular director, 49-year-old William Desmond Taylor, was found dead on the floor of his home. The handsome and refined Englishman was sporting a single bullet hole in his back. Who did it? Decades later, rumors and theories are still floating around Tinseltown. Let's quickly review the cast of characters. Movie star Mabel Normand was a good friend with a bad drug habit. Mary Miles Minter was a 17-year-old child star with a crush. And then there was Mary's mom, Charlotte Shelby, a deranged stage mom who saw Taylor as a threat. Let's get back to the night Taylor was murdered.
It was a very busy evening for William Desmond Taylor. After his normal day shooting at the studio, he'd come back, he'd changed his clothes. One of his first visitors was Mabel Normand.
When Mabel Normand arrived at Taylor's house, she said she heard him on the phone arguing very heatedly with someone. Was that Charlotte admonishing him to stay away from her daughter? Some people think that Mary Miles Minter was hiding upstairs the entire time that Mabel was there, that she had come over to declare her love to Taylor, and when she heard Mabel, she ran upstairs to hide.
She had had a huge fight with her mother. Her mother had hit her. She wanted to leave her mother. She wanted to come live with William Desmond Taylor.
That annoyed Mother very much, because in the contract, she had this $1,300,000 only if she didn't marry, because she had to pretend to be a little girl.
Wouldn't exactly be good for the studio's reputation if their most popular ingenue was shacking up with a man old enough to be her grandpa.
I don't think that Taylor particularly returned Mary's affections, other than in a very fatherly way.
She was probably in William Desmond Taylor's arms when Charlotte Shelby arrived, you know, wielding the infamous pistol that literally everybody connected with Charlotte Shelby knew about. I'm sure in a fit of anger, you know, Charlotte Shelby shot William Desmond Taylor.
The next morning, Taylor's butler, Henry Peavy, arrived to find his boss sprawled dead on the floor. After a desperate call to Paramount Studios, Peavy eventually called police.
The first two policemen got there, much to their surprise. They found the door wide open and a number of people coming in and out. One of the first people they stopped was a studio executive, literally carrying out a box of booze. You know, you've got to realize this was during Prohibition. Studio executives were kneeling by the fireplace, throwing papers into the fire. They found a set of keys that fit no locks that they were ever able to find. They found a cache of pornographic photographs. They found Mary Miles Minter's underwear.
So police began their investigation. Mabel Norman was questioned and released. Mabel was a drug addict, yes, but not a murderer. Mary Miles Minter and her mother, Charlotte Shelby, were also questioned, but had an alibi, claiming they were home together at the time of the murder. Pretty convenient. Another person police were interested in talking to was Taylor's butler, Henry Peavy. And it turned out that Henry had a few secrets of his own.
Peavy had been arrested in a nearby park for soliciting men.
Others suggest that Peavy was only doing his job.
It's a mystery as to exactly what the relationship between Peavy and Taylor was. Peavy often procured sex partners for William Desmond Taylor, and that the keys that mysteriously fit no locks that police were ever able to find might well have belonged to an apartment where Taylor had his rendezvous.
But wait a minute, it gets even better. What if the studio execs weren't at the murder scene to remove evidence, but to plant some?
Certainly back in 1922, if it were found that a director were homosexual, then they would feel that, well, was he trying to create films that were perverting the country?
You just can't have a man who wields a great deal of power and influence a homosexual. It was considered such a sin that they would go to almost any lengths to cover that up. And it wasn't hard to cover up. You plant a few pieces of underwear, you put some pornographic photos, some girly magazines in there, and it covers it up. The studio wasn't trying to cover up the murderer. They were just trying to clean up after their leading director.
Studios have always protected their properties, but I've never known of a studio doing anything illegal to protect their stars.
Well, if there was a cover-up, it worked. There was no mention of homosexuality in the press. Besides, everybody was too busy talking about Mary Miles Minter's underpants. The finger of suspicion seemed to be pointing at one person, Charlotte Shelby. So why wasn't she arrested? Could the killer have been someone else? An irate drug dealer? Some shady hustler? A hitman? When we come back, why did the cops' investigation bog down? Well, two words come to mind: corruption and bribery. But just who was bribing who? It was February of 1922. The press was in a feeding frenzy over Hollywood's first whodunit, the shooting death of the dashing English director, William Desmond Taylor. I'm A.J. Benza, and this is Mysteries and Scandals. Everybody and their mother was a suspect. Now, let's get back to the night of the shooting.
On the evening that Taylor was murdered, Mabel Norman visited him about 7 o'clock in the evening.
But apparently William and Mabel were being watched. According to two eyewitnesses, Taylor's neighbor Faith McLean and her maid, someone was lurking outside the bungalow.
Faith McLean's maid had heard a person pacing earlier in the evening in the alley. Also, it's thought that that person who was pacing back there was the person who killed Taylor.
A very short time later, Mabel herself left. Taylor escorted her out the door, leaving his bungalow apartment door open. He had to walk to the front of the courtyard to where Mabel Norman's chauffeur had parked the car, giving the killer minutes to slip into the front door, which he had left ajar.
They kissed goodnight on the street, and as the chauffeur drove her away, she kissed the glass, you know, so her lipstick imprint was there.
After Taylor had escorted Mabel Norman to the car, when he walked back in the door, the killer was crouched down.
I believe that someone said, "Hands up."
Raised the gun and fired.
Many of the neighbors heard the shot, but they dismissed it as a car backfiring. Faith was the only one who looked out the window. And when she looked out the window,
there was a man on the porch of William Desmond Taylor's house, and he looked her straight in the eye, closed the door behind him, walked down the front stairs. And the question is, who is that man?
Or was he a man at all?
It is my belief that it was Charlotte, the mother of Mary Miles Minter, dressed as a man, who slipped into Taylor's house and shot him that night. She is the only person with a real reason to want to kill Bill Taylor.
Charlotte wasn't going to let anything come between those riches that she believed were hers.
There were statements indicating that Charlotte Shelby knew about the murder at 7:30 or so that morning, at a time when there was no way that Shelby could possibly have known, unless she were somehow involved.
She mentioned it to her chauffeur before anyone else knew.
There was plenty of circumstantial evidence to implicate Charlotte Shelby in the murder. I'm sure she had an alibi, but it was her own daughter, Mary, the girl she controlled with an iron fist, who said her mother was home that night with her. But if you knew your mom had just committed a cold-blooded murder, you might tend to do as you're told. So if the killer was Charlotte, how did she get away with it?
Many other public officials at that time, and through the 20s and 30s in Los Angeles, were convicted of bribery. In those days, it was a different kind of town.
At the height of her career, Mary Miles Minter was worth well over $1 million. And in those days, that was a fortune. But soon after Taylor's murder, Mary's bank account began to shrink while others got fat.
The bank accounts of the 3 DAs were really the proof that convinced me that Charlotte was the one, and Charlotte covered the crime.
It's safe to say that there was a great deal of corruption that went on in Los Angeles in the 20s.
Well, it's not like LA invented corruption and graft. Actually, I think that was Chicago. But in this town, power, glamour, fame, and lots of money have created an atmosphere unlike any place else on earth. And the William Desmond Taylor murder was an early indicator of things to come. Just ahead, we'll look at the aftermath of this infamous murder case and the lives, careers, and reputations that were annihilated. Up taking the fall for the 1922 murder of the dashing film director William Desmond Taylor? Well, Hollywood took the fall. Despite the evidence, nobody was ever arrested or charged with the crime. But since Taylor's murder, Tinseltown has never been able to shake its reputation for promoting and encouraging bad behavior. Well, if the shoe fits, even if it is a Gucci, wear it.
The shot that killed William Desmond Taylor reverberated for years to come in the Hollywood community. It changed everything.
Hollywood had already become a very important part of Los Angeles, of California, and the studios have always had a lot of power.
Paramount's biggest star, Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, was on trial for the rape and murder of a starlet. When their star director, Taylor, is found dead, they were petrified.
And the stars were very much idolized, presented to the public as these very good people. For them to be found engaging in this behavior which was not in accordance with their screen image, a lot of the American people felt that their idols had been shattered.
Censorship came in, Hollywood had to clean itself up, you know, bad for the image, bad for money. And so what's new about Hollywood, you know, it was all there at the beginning.
If you want to look back at the very roots of spin doctoring, you know, you could say it started right here in Hollywood, and William Desmond Taylor was murder investigation was a perfect example, you know, of the success they had doing that.
But nobody could protect those directly involved in the William Desmond Taylor murder scandal.
Anyone connected to this murder case, their careers, their lives became tainted. Mabel Normand was not prepared for what happened to her in Hollywood.
How could she have been? Even though she was never considered a suspect in the murder, the press exposed her as a drug addict. Mabel became a marked woman.
Through the 20s, she was really in and out of sanitariums. Her career was gone, so she was forgotten in that way, and she did finally die in a little sanitarium in Pasadena.
And what about Mary Miles Minter, the 17-year-old starlet who had a crush on Taylor?
Mary Miles Minter, after her film contract ended, she never made another movie.
In the later years of Mary's life, it was Mary who turned on her mother. It was Mary who kept her mother, you know, locked in an upstairs bedroom. Mary never publicly admitted guilt herself or the guilt of her mother, but she stated in her diaries that her mother killed William Desmond Taylor.
Just about everyone agrees that Mary's mother, Charlotte Shelby, committed the murder or hired someone to do it. But as long as Charlotte was writing checks, she stayed out of the slammer.
Charlotte Shelby invested her daughter's money wisely. I believe that she paid off 3 generations of DAs who passed the information from one person to the next, or who discovered it in their predecessors' files, that she was the one who pulled the trigger.
Finally, what about the legacy of William Desmond Taylor, a man who directed more than 40 films in his 10 years in Hollywood?
He was an extremely prominent director in Hollywood, and yet now, if his name is remembered at all, it's only as the victim of Hollywood's most famous murder mystery.
And people are still talking about and still wondering how he was murdered and who did it. My gosh, he's become a legend. He will go on as a legend as long as there's a Hollywood.
And as long as there's a Hollywood, mystery and scandal will be lurking just around the corner. I'm A.J. Benza. Join me the next time we take a stroll down the flip side of the Hollywood Walk of Fame.